And we're back.
All right, so we are back. Thank you for sticking around for a couple minutes there while we adjusted on the taste here. I have got Christian Palmaz, who you can see is behind me here on the screen. And I got to give a quick little history before I get into talking to him. And again, Christian, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I'd say probably got 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. I was visiting Napa, and everybody knows that I'm this wine enthusiast. It's the word I have to use now. And I was visiting Napa and was recommended to go check you out. And a good friend of mine, who I won't throw out names out there, made the call, and I got me in the same day to go to Palmaz Vineyards. And I'd never been before. This is the first time I'd gone to it. The drive was beautiful. Arriving was breathtaking and beautiful. I was there with 2 good friends of mine that were colleagues at the time, with Alex and Ani. And we spent the better part of 3.5 hours at the vineyard. And it was amazing. There's not enough good things that I could say about this particular vineyard. The technology that you have there, the caves, which were unbelievable, the wines, which were amazing. So I have been a member of the Baristas Wine Club, and I wanted to reach out to Christian and his wife Jessica, who's had the unfortunate dealings of dealing with me every time I wanted to change my wine and what I was looking for when the monthly wines were coming out. So I apologize, Jessica. But some very cool things that you guys have that you offer to your wine club members, and I'm happy that I've been a part of it for so long. But Cabernet, I had to bring in to showcase one of your Cabernets because I'll probably be drinking this later on. But I brought in the 2013 Gaston. Awesome. And then you're gonna have to give a little history for me, but I'll get into this. But this right here is, you can see that in there, and I'll take it out a little bit more. I've got, I think, 3 of these that you made at different times. And Christian, correct me if I'm wrong, these are made in Argentina, right?
Yes. They're actually made by a silversmith that's been working with the family for generations now.
So before we get into everything else, give us a little quick history on these, because I found this fascinating when I first learned about this. And I honestly didn't quite understand or know about it when I first joined. So.
Well, so they're called facon. So the facon is it's like a steak knife, right? And It's a tradition. Typically, when you turn 18, you are given one, either down by your grandfather or from a family member, or as a gift, and it's yours, right? It's a part of you. You take it to parties, and you wear it proudly on your on your belt, and it's a kind of an Argentine tradition.
And it's got the clip right there he's mentioned about his belt. And the events that you do on a regular basis, you encourage the society members to bring these with them, right, to the events?
Absolutely. So our Baristas members are very special. When we do events on property, we kind of recreate some of the traditional Argentine asados. And so we invite customers to bring their knives and dine with us as we kind of do some fun culinary adventures.
Well, it's an unbelievable tradition, and I'm glad I was able to receive a couple of them and be a part of it. So I reached out to Christian, and I have to say I hunted down his wife is the better way to do it, is that I had been trying to track down Jessica and talk to her, and I know that there was a lot going on in Napa with the fires, and I have to say that she was communicating perfectly out there to everyone with the emails that were coming out and letting us know about what was happening, and there was a dramatic outpouring of support, similar to what's been going on with a lot of these other natural disasters, if you will, around the country. But in Napa, there was different parts to it. So in Napa, you were dealing with not just loss of property with people that live there in homes, but impacting the potential of an enormous amount of wine country that not only employs people, but if you're losing vineyards or losing property or buildings, it takes a long time to kind of bring some of those things back. And I saw some of the different things, how Palmaz, what you went through, which could have been a lot worse compared to some others, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's so the fire started around for us in our area around 1 a.m. on Sunday night or Monday morning, and they started in Atlas Peak. Now most of the country is aware there were kind of different fires, different names, but the one that affected us was called the Atlas Fire. And it started in Atlas Peak. I received some messages from some friends saying, hey, there's a fire in our area. But at the time, it was about 11 p.m., and we thought, there's just no way it's going to burn over that hill and over the next hill and affect us. But as you probably heard, the winds were picking up,
it was a fast-moving fire.
Before we knew it, the flames were well on our property.
So, what damage did Palmaz sustain from the fire coming through?
So we were very fortunate, kind of for two reasons. So, our property goes up and over Mount George. So it's about 610 acres, and it's kind of encompasses the three major peaks of Mount George.
Right.
The winds were favoring the fire was climbing up the mountain. And so that gave us a little bit of time to prepare our water tender. So we have some resources. We kind of have like our own little fire department on site, and we were able to create some defensible perimeter around some of the historic homes on the property and the historic buildings. Ultimately, we did lose one building that was just a guest house, and truly, we were very fortunate that's all we lost. The winery, as you know, being underground, the cave structure, it's all stone. Right. There's really nothing to burn, except for some, landscape lighting here and there. We made out pretty well.
So the fire kind of went over the top of the cave, more or less, right?
Right. Kind of started from the foothills and then went up across the property and continued up over the mountain.
Now, you mentioned that you kind of are self-contained and you had your own water supply and stuff there. From the things that I read, and I think that Jessica may have put it out there as well, is that you guys were able to provide water to the fire department. Is that correct?
Well, as you can imagine, of course we were probably one of tens of thousands of phone calls to 911, and we knew they were saturated. CAL FIRE was spread extremely thin because there were neighborhoods with much more dense population burning actively. And so we anticipated that CAL FIRE was not going to show up, prioritizing where people were living versus a raw mountainside and some sparse and a business. And so we fought the fire ourselves for about 3 to 4 hours, and then were very surprised and pleased to see CAL FIRE eventually show up. They showed up around 3:30, 4 in the morning.
Wow.
And helped us control the fire, but more importantly, they were able to access the fire hydrants, because in Coombsville, wineries are kind of far and few between. And so we were one of the only commercial working fire hydrants in the area. So they were able to fill up their fire trucks and run off and fight other fires. So that was great to be able to provide that service to them.
No, it's fantastic. I'm sure it made a traumatic difference to them dealing with what they were dealing with, is that the access to that water supply was very impactful. So,
yes, fortunately we had plenty of water to provide, and our backup generators were able to keep that water flowing to them.
That's fantastic. So, Christian, tell us about, you've been in Napa for a while now. Your family's, had heavy investment in this winery and expanded it nicely. What are some of the other things that you've seen from your neighbors? I heard things that, I heard earlier today that, I think it was Hess Winery, that their tasting room, burned to the ground. And I'm sure you got neighborhoods and residences all around you that, suffered some things. What are some of the things that you've seen out there in Napa?
Yeah, we keep using that word very fortunate, and the reason is because you just drive down the street and it's quite humbling. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of homes just in the Silverado area. These are beautiful homes that have been on the side of the mountain for so many years. And you drive through some of these areas, and it's not the exception, but the rule to see some, entire streets where every home is burned down, and then you'll occasionally see one that didn't. And so the devastation is pretty incredible. But then, in terms of wineries, fortunately, a lot of wineries are surrounded by vineyards, and that defensible space saved them.
Right.
But we did hear, of course, of the tragic stories of total losses up and down the valley. Signorello, Hess, you mentioned.
Right.
There were a handful that, unfortunately, and these are beautiful historical buildings. Some of them very special to the valley's history that, unfortunately, just didn't survive the fires.
So one of the things that I want to make sure that we put out there, and I had, a month or more back, I had conversations with Sean Beck from Houston. He's one of the general managers at a restaurant out there. And I highlighted this fact and the importance of it, and I want to kind of come back to it with you as well, is that you gave back already with the water. You're giving back, and I noticed that you're giving a percentage back, I think, on the purchase of wine, right? That's going to the Napa Valley Disaster Relief Fund. Is that correct?
Yes, that fund was put together soon after the fires, and it kind of covers, I think, all the important factors. It takes care of a lot of people who were displaced by by the fire itself, people who lost their homes, but also helps the first responders because there were some injuries and there were some even some first responders who they themselves lost their homes, and so we think the fund is a good response to the fire, at least locally, and we and many other wineries up and down the valley are doing what we can to support them.
And, I wanted to come back to this thing about the recovery of it, and that support is immensely important to have out there, but you managed to keep the winery up and running with the systems you have, and you have the technology that you have there, and I think the system's Felix. Am I getting that right? That you have that maintained?
Yes.
So,
yeah, Felix is just a kind of a cute pet name. It's really an acronym. It stands for Fermentation Intelligent Logic Control System. But if you've been to the winery, it kind of presents itself in our fermentation dome as that kind of projected surface on the ceiling.
Yeah, and you can literally hit that you want to know what's in what tank and when it was harvested and when it's going to be ready and all that. Right? It's absolutely amazing. I still have fantastic pictures of it. It's absolutely amazing.
Right. So we developed Felix really to act as an assistant to the creative winemaking team. Right. So the idea is so that when you get to work with the brilliant minds that our industry has. For us, it's Mia Klein and Tina Mitchell. When you work with people at their caliber, really the only instrument you want someone like them to have in their hand when they make wine is a glass. And so what Felix does is focuses on all the mundane details, the things that you and I can put numbers to, so that they can focus on the things they can see, smell, taste, and feel. They're a little more abstract.
Right.
And so we never designed Felix, however, to operate without the sort of supervision and assistance of that creative arm. And so when the fires hit, it was a rather incredible situation that Felix, for about a period of about 24 hours, was running about 21 fermentations all by itself because
wow.
The winemakers couldn't get on site because it was a mandatory evacuation period, and we also lost our fiber optic connection, so we couldn't log in from the outside and see what it was up to.
Right.
And so here we are about a week later, rather impressed and relieved that a lot of the decisions Felix had made based on its big data model and its artificial intelligence system actually in many cases were able to save the wine, and that was really interesting to us.
Absolutely, that's amazing. So in touching upon that, saving the wine and the future releases that you have coming out, before I close out with you, I just want to highlight that Napa by no means should not be visited. I mean, there's already recovery going on, scenery and landscapes already coming back. From what I've seen there, wineries are going to other areas if they have to open their tasting rooms and such. You would encourage people that they need to come out at this point to support Napa and be a part of what's the recovery effort, if you will, right?
Absolutely. A lot of people ask us on social media, personally, what can we do to help? And unequivocally, the answer is come back and visit, right? Come stay in our world-class hotels. Come stay, come dine in these incredible restaurants that Napa Valley has, and come visit these incredible wineries. Napa Valley is, I promise you, very, very quickly recovering here. And before you know it, we've already had our first rains of the season. It'll be a beautiful green place. It always has been, and the valley's ready to welcome anyone with open arms. We'd be more than happy to visit with anybody.
Fantastic. Well, Christian Palmaz, president of Palmaz Winery in Napa Valley, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time today to join me and be with me. I will be out there again soon, and I will we'll do a Facebook Live or something when I'm out there so we can all get together and showcase how Napa has recovered. So purchase California wine, support people like Christian and his winery. I've gone a little bit over today, but I wanted to make sure we highlighted this. Kate Nagel is up next with everything news and politics. Thank you for joining me today on the Take.